Sometimes in NASCAR, the biggest story is not the crash, not the winner, and not even the superstar summitums. The real story is who gets the seat back, and that is exactly what just happened with Junior Motorsports number 88, because for a short time, it looked like this car had suddenly turned into Kyle Larson's personal part-time weapon. Showed up. One at Las Vegas, nearly controlled Darlington too. And suddenly fans started asking the obvious question: if Larson is this fast, why take him out? And honestly, that is a fair question, but once you see the full chain reaction, from Alex Bowman's vertigo diagnosis, to the Hendrick shuffle, to Junior Motorsports' long-term plan, this stops looking like a random driver swap and starts looking like one of the smartest decisions a top organization can make, and this whole thing says a lot about where Junior Motorsports sees its future. Know what this reminds me of? Sometimes in life, somebody temporarily steps into your lane, performs at a very high level, and suddenly everybody forgets who that lane was actually built for. That happens in sports all the time. Backup gets hotter, superstar fills and headlines get loud, and people stop asking what the original plan was. Instead, they start asking what feels hottest right now. But smart teams do not build their future around noise, they build it around purpose, and that is exactly why this number 88 story matters more than people think. Before we go any further, let's clear up the biggest misconception in media. This is not a story about Kyle Larson losing anything in Cup. That part is already settled. Larson signed a 5-year contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports in February, which keeps him in the number 5 Cup car through 2031. Oh no. This is not some hidden Cup Series panic story, and it is definitely not a Larson seat drama. This is a Junior Motorsports number 88 story. Once you understand that, everything starts making a lot more sense, because the number 88 was never supposed to be some random open seat. It was built with a very specific purpose from the beginning. Coming into 2026, JR Motorsports had a very clear plan for this kart. Bulk of the schedule minus 23 races was assigned to Raja Crew. Remaining starts were going to be split between Hendrick Motorsports Cup drivers Kyle Larson, William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Alex Bowman. And that structure matters because this was not just a race car, it was a development seat, a spotlight seat, and a benchmark seat, all at the same time. A car designed to help a young driver grow, while also letting elite Cup talent jump in and show the team exactly what top-level speed looks like. And when you think about it, that is actually a very smart model. It gives the young driver experience, it gives the crew a high-level reference point, it gives sponsors major visibility, and it gives the organization more chances to win. In other words, JR Motorsports was not just filling recess, they were building a system, and before anything even went wrong, that car was already one of the most interesting stories in this finity. Garage William Byron had already made an appearance in the Karaja. Caruth was stepping into a major opportunity, and the Hendrick connection made the entire program feel bigger than a normal part-time in truth. And one unexpected medical issue changed everything. Entire domino effect really begins with Alex Bowman first started dealing with vertigo symptoms during the March 1st Cup race at Circuit of the Americas. That alone was serious. Climbed out after 71 laps, and Myatt Snyder took over to finish the race. At first, a lot of people probably thought this might just be a one-week issue, but then it didn't stop. Bowman missed Phoenix, then he missed Las Vegas, and once that happened, the story became much more serious. Hendrick Motorsports later confirmed that Bowman would also miss Darlington, Martinsville, and Bristol as he continued recovering from vertigo. And that is where this story crossed directly into Junior Motorsports territory. Becky's Bowman was also scheduled to drive the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet at Darlington in this Xfinity Series. So now one medical issue had done something rare. It didn't just affect one series, it created a ripple across both Cup and Xfinity at the same time, and that is when this stopped being just an unfortunate driver absence and became a full organizational schedule shakeup. That is also when the next big question: Rivalries gets the 88 now. And then came the part that made this entire story much louder. Kyle Larson did not just fill in and made the whole thing impossible to ignore because when Larson got into the number 88, he did exactly what superstars do and made a temporary opportunity feel like a major event at Las Vegas. He was fast immediately worked through the race. The team adjusted the car, and when it mattered most, he put himself in position to win, and he did that mattered a lot more than just one trophy because now the conversation changed from who was filling in to wait. Is this suddenly Larson's car whenever he wants it? And once fans start asking that, the pressure changes because NASCAR fans are not just watching lap times, they are always trying to read the bigger message in the message. After Vegas was obvious this car is dangerous, not descent not. Solid dangerous came Darlington. And somehow the story got even more dramatic. Larson started on the police-controlled huge portions of the Recife. One staggish looked like the class of the field for long stretches. And if you watched that race, you probably had the same feeling. A lot of people had this looks like Larson's race to lose bit. Then the race turned a late race pit road issue changed. Everything track position slipped away. The final restart reshuffled the outcome instead of another win. Larson had to settle for a strong result instead of the one that looked almost inevitable, and that is exactly what made the conversation even louder because in back-to-back starts, Larson had basically done two things. One race and he almost dominated the next. That is exactly the kind of short run that gets fans asking the obvious question, would you take him out now? And honestly, from a pure speed standpoint, that question is completely fair because let's be honest, this is what a lot of people were really thinking. If Kyle Larson gives you the best chance to win right now, why not just keep using him? That is not a dumb question. That is exactly how fans think, and in a sport built on results, speed can make every long-term plan feel suddenly negotiable bit. This is where you separate short-term excitement from serious program building. Beckhouse race teams are not supposed to make every decision based on whatever looked hottest last weekend. If they do that, they stop building anything sustainable, and that is where Roger Caruth becomes the center of this entire story. Roger Caruth was never supposed to be a placeholder. That is the key point to many people miss. Was not there just to hold the seat until a bigger name arrived, was brought into this program on purpose. Motorsports gave him the bulk of the schedule because they clearly see something in him, not just as a driver for one weekend, but as someone worth investing in and that matters. Because once an organization commits races, resources, crew time, sponsor exposure, and developmental energy into a driver, that is not something you casually throw away just because a superstar looked incredible into starts. And honestly, this is where good organizations separate themselves from emotional honest. A reactionary team says Larson is hot. Keep him in. A smart team says Larson gave us elite data, elite exposure, elite standards. And now we hand that back to the driver. This program was built around. That is a very different mindset. It is the correct one because the real mission of the number 88 was never just to create occasional headliness. It was to develop Roger Caruth inside a high-performance environment. Larson's role was to raise the ceiling. Caruth's role is still to build the future. And if you are Junior Motorsports, you cannot afford to confuse those two jobs. That is why the final decision matters so much, because Junior Motorsports had a choice. They could have chased the louder story or they could protect the bigger vision, and they chose the bigger vision. That is a sign of maturity to think about what they already got from Larson. They got the attention, they got the credibility boost, they got a win, they got another near win, they got fresh performance benchmarks for the crew, and they got even more eyes on the number 88 program. That is a massive return. So now, if you are Junior Motorsports, the smartest move is not to keep milking the headline. The smartest move is to ask one question: how do we turn all of this into something useful for Roger Caruth? Because that is the real when Harino Caruth does not return to a quiet story, returns to a car that everyone is watching, and that changes everything. No, every lap means every restart feels bigger, every result gets judged harder. That pressure is real, but that is also exactly how growth happens at some point. The sport stops grading you on potential and starts grading you on what you do when the spotlight finally lands on you. And for Roger Caruth, That spotlight just got a lot brighter, and now we have the official answer for Martinsville. The number 88 goes back to Reddick here, and that confirms something very important, Kyle. Larson's extra run in the car was exactly what it looked like from the beginning, a temporary expansion caused by a bigger Hendrick and Bowman situation, not a permanent change in who the seat belongs. Toned, that is the right call, because if Larson had stayed in again, the message would have changed at that point. This would no longer feel like a structured shared program, it would start feeling like Junior Motorsports had abandoned its own developmental plan in the middle of the season, and that would have been a bad signal not just to Carruth, but to everyone watching from the outside. Drivers noticed that, sponsors noticed that, fans not. The strongest move a team can make is not the loudest Onesimus times. The strongest move is simply staying committed to the plan you built before the chaos started, and that is exactly what Junior Motorsports has done here. No, here is the part that makes this genuinely interesting. For fans' conversation, it's no longer just about Larson. The pressure shifts directly to Reddick because the obvious question becomes this: can he take what this team just showed with Larson and actually do something with it himself? That is the real storyline. No, and it is a fascinating one, because when a superstar jumps into your equipment and instantly runs at the front, it tells the world one thing very clear: live car is capable. And once that happens, expectations change. Fans stop saying he is learning it, and they start saying, okay, what can he do with this? That is not always fair, but it is real, and honestly, it is part of becoming a serious driver. At some point, the sport stops grading you on promise and starts grading you on performance. And now Roger Carruth is stepping back into a car that has already shown race-winning speed. That means the opportunity is real, but so is the pressure. And even though the number 88 side of this story now has clarity, the Hendrick Motorsport side is still not fully over, because Alex Bowman's exact return timeline still remains uncertain beyond the races already confirmed. That means the Cup garage is still adjusting around his absence, and that matters, because every time one major seat changes, the ripple effect can continue touching backup plans, weekend schedules, and organizational priorities across the board. So while Larson's extra number 88 run may be over for now, the original disruption that created all of this is still very much active, and that is what makes NASCAR so fascinating. Some unexpected issue, and one car can quietly reshape multiple teams, multiple weekends, and multiple careers. So if we strip this entire thing down to its simplest truth, this is what happened. Alex Bowman's vertigo changed the schedule. Kyle Larson raised the noise. Azure Motorsports stayed loyal to the plan, and now Reddick Carruth gets the seat back with the entire garage watching. That is the story, and honestly, that is the right story. Because Larson did exactly what a superstar is supposed to do. Showed up, nearly won again, and he raised the profile of the car immediately. But Junior Motorsports also did exactly what a smart organization is supposed to do. They absorbed the chaos, took the benefits, and returned to the driver. They are actually trying to build. That is not weakness, that is vision. There is a line I always come back to in sports: a moment can make you famous, but a plan is what makes you last, and that fits this story perfect. Like Larson gave the number 88 a huge moment. No, Reddick Carruth has to prove whether he can turn that moment into something that actually lasts, and honestly, that is what makes Martinsville so interesting. Now, not because Larson is gone a bit, because the standard he left behind is still sitting in that garage. The speed is there, the tension is there, the opportunity is there. No, the only thing left to find out is this: what does Reddick Carruth do with it? If you are a real NASCAR fan, this is the kind of story you love, because it is not just about who is fast, it is about what teams actually believe in when things get messy. So now I want to know what you did Junior Motorsports make the right call by putting Roger Carruth back in the number 88? Or should they have kept Kyle Larson in the car one more week?